yeah, if you just want to maybe quickly introduce yourself, say where you are and what you do at the moment.
My name is Stefano Pozzebon. I'm a freelance journalist based in Bogota, Colombia. Bogota is the capital of Colombia. I moved here on March the 12th, which was just literally the weekend before Colombia declared the national lockdown. First, it was Bogota declaring the lockdown, and then the rest of Colombia. I moved here from Venezuela, where I lived in the past 4 years, and working mainly for TV and CNN International, essentially. And yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to living in my new country, Colombia, new challenge and exploration and all of it. But for the past 5 weeks, I think, that's been put on a break on. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So how's the situation in Colombia at the moment? What's going on regarding
think,
coronavirus and the lockdown and so on?
yeah, well, Colombia, as well as much of Latin America, is a very unequal place. Unequal in a way that we in Europe don't really understand somehow.
Mm-hmm.
In the neighborhood that I am, which is a very privileged central neighbor in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, the situation is pretty much the same as the one that I'm hearing from friends and family back in Europe. So you can't leave the house unless for doing some shoppings and essential business. Like banks are still open, for example. Supermarkets are still open, but you're required to wear a mask every time you leave the house. One thing in Bogota, for example, is that they allow men and women to go out on alternative days. So, for example, today it's a Women's Day, so I cannot leave the house. My girlfriend went to the supermarket, but apart from that, we're really having a very similar experience to the one that friends in Europe have, and maybe your audience has.
Yeah.
The delivery system is working at full speed. You can have in Bogota, you can have pretty much everything you want to eat delivered to your home.
Yeah.
Some bars have even delivered cocktails, Negronis and martinis, just to keep people happy.
Yeah.
The situation is radically different in the slums. Colombia, as much as Latin America, has a massive population who live in the informal sector. These people live in slums and need to leave the house every single day to try get some food. So the economic cost of keeping the country shut for health reasons are much more severe than we have in Europe.
Okay.
In Europe, when we talk about informal sector, for example, I'm Italian and I speak with friends, families. Lots of friends and families are suffering in Italy, but everybody seems to have a family that can help. And the informal sector is about 10 to 15% of the economy. Here in Colombia, 77% of the workforce do not have a welfare net. They do not even have a pension plan or anything like that. So the economic implication is much harsher. Yeah. And that's why, for example, you see the city of Bogota, the mayor office of Bogota, that from today is starting to deliver bags of food to the slums to try to let try to be present as much as possible. Yeah. And at the same time, there is a big debate going on about reopening the country from next Monday.
Oh, okay.
Because there is this source of urgency. There is a source of urgency that you're not only fighting unemployment. You see the headlines in the United States: 22 million unemployed. Yeah. Friends we have in common are out of work right now in the UK, and they are struggling to pay the rent. Yeah. Here, people are struggling to find food to live. Yeah. That's basically the main difference. Okay. That I think, and it's weird because my situation in central Bogota is more similar to the one that friends in Europe have. I'm still working from home. We are absolutely fine, and we're privileged to be in this situation because many other people, millions of people in Colombia and in the rest of Latin America, are really going through a very seriously hard time.
Yeah. But yeah, Colombia hasn't been hit that hard, right? It's, I think.
No, exactly. We have, I think it's around 4,000 cases, and we have about 200 deaths. The most important thing is that cases are still growing every single day, but they do not grow exponentially. They grow by 200 every day, and every day is 200 more cases, but no more than that. So they haven't flattened the curve. We'll all come to love this expression. They haven't flattened the curve yet, but they definitely have, managed to keep the curve quite down. The increase is not very, very high. I think that is because many countries in Latin America have been, including Colombia, have been way more thorough and way less shy to force the population in-house. I think that in Europe, we're used to have a national health service. The UK has one, France has one, Italy, Spain have among the best health systems in the world. And so most countries, at least at the beginning, had the feeling that they could somehow manage to keep the virus down and keep the economy open. That was never a choice for governments in Latin America. I think Colombia declared a lockdown, but they did have less than 50 cases, less than 50 deaths. Sorry. And there is a shared knowledge and a shared impression among the population that the states here do not have the resources to confront the virus if the virus arrives at the same force and intensity as it is right now in Southern Europe, Spain and Italy especially. So that's why I think most countries have declared the lockdowns as early as the European ones did, and the virus was not here yet in the same strength.
Because if you came on the 12th, that was the 13th, right? That the lockdown started, 13th of March.
The lockdown. We got in from a country, Venezuela, that didn't have any case at that time, and still were required to quarantine. So we started quarantine by ourselves on the 15th, and then Bogota declared a lockdown on the 17th. So 17th of March, and the rest of the region was pretty much around the same dates. Apart from Brazil and Mexico, the whole rest of Latin America was very thorough and very much at the beginning. And even if you consider it, like the idea that the state is prohibiting me to leave my house because I'm a man today and my girlfriend is allowed today, not tomorrow, that is a measure that will be met by a lot of resistance in Europe, because we're very much more, we take our civil rights and our liberties way more for granted than here. The state, they know that they do not have the force to confront the virus in the hospitals because there are simply not enough ICUs, for example, as the ones that we have here. And so the state, they don't really have a trouble with finding you, I don't know, $400 or $300 if they catch you outside. And if you or prohibiting you to leave the house if you're a man on this day and a woman on the other day. In the UK, I think jogging has always been allowed. Like people could still go out for running, and here you can't go out for running. You can't go out for sports, for example. So the measure of, from one side is the state is way more thorough and way more precise and way more forceful in implementing these measures to save us all, essentially. At the same time, the implications for civil rights and civil liberties are stronger here. And I think that's due to the fact that the states know that they can't find the virus. So that's pretty paying off, because if we are already discussing about reopening the country, Argentina is partially reopening the country in April. Here, after talks of reopening, on Monday, 27th of April. here in Colombia, after talks of reopening from the 27th, the president has declared that the lockdown will continue until the 11th of May, but it will somehow allow parts of the economy, especially construction and manufacturing, to reopen earlier than that. And for example, the city of Bogota is considering whether allowing people back into the parks and do sports by themselves in the open air.
Okay.
So, and as you said correctly, we never had the feeling of this like pandemic. We never had, we never saw the hospital wards completely taken over by coronavirus. We never saw any of that.
Yeah. And
so that's positive.
Yeah. Maybe more on a personal note. I mean, obviously you're from Italy. I don't know, are you from northern Italy, or I mean, I feel it's funny because usually in Europe we are looking out into the world and disaster is happening elsewhere. But now you were outside of Europe.
That's my job.
Yeah, and now you're outside of Europe and you look to Europe and the disaster is happening there. So how was that for you, obviously coming from one of the most affected regions?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the feeling back in the last 2 weeks of March, which were the feelings were, the weeks when Italy, northern Italy, I'm from the north, I'm a little bit northern than Milan, were really in the spotlight. My sister, for example, lived in Bergamo, which is this city that has been particularly hit, and every single media on earth published the story about the necrologies in Bergamo's newspaper.
Yeah.
And we saw the images of the military, the Italian army taking the coffers out of the city of Bergamo, which was very hard for me. Not hard, but it was awkward. It was very awkward to see those images, given that I moved to Venezuela to be the one who reports on, you may call it disaster zones or crises or any sort of that. And then suddenly I was stuck in Colombia, but in a country that somehow was still managing to control the virus. And I was seeing these images coming from Bergamo. I'm used to speaking with doctors who tell me that they do not have the resources to look after their patients.
Yeah.
And for once, my mom is a health worker in Lombardy, so she was the one telling me that, which was weird. I think that slowly, as the feeling of emergency passed on from northern Italy, maybe moved over to the rest of Europe, their feeling has somehow diminished. Nobody of my family got infected. Nobody of my close circle. Of course, I know people who have lost dear ones because of the virus. The numbers are staggering and tragic in Italy. But that feeling of kind of that awkward feeling has somehow decreased as long as essentially Lombardy, the north of Italy, took a hold of the virus and managed somehow to at least flatten the curve and halt the spread. But yeah, it's definitely something that resonates with me when you ask me that. And here in Bogota, there is a good community of Italian journalists, actually. Another fellow correspondent who works for a competing channel is Italian as well, and a few freelancers, photographers. And so we joked about the fact that we're all missing out the big story, which was happening in Italy. I mean, the hope is that type of story doesn't ever arrive here, because if coronavirus arrives with the same strength across the whole of South America, this would really be a breaking moment.
Yeah, of course. But now you guys are stuck inside. Is there anything you look forward to doing again if COVID is gone? Like what's something that...
Oh, I looked forward to go to Decathlon.
Yeah.
I moved here and I only had 2 days to be able to leave the house.
Yeah.
And we went to Home Center, which is the Colombian version of IKEA. but we still don't have a sofa. We
Okay.
still don't have pillows, for example. I wanted to buy a few things in Decathlon and other stuff that you need when you open a new house and you
Yeah.
move into a new house. We have a terrace upstairs, and we wanted to grow little plants in the terrace, and we haven't been able to because of the florists are shut down. So we are looking forward to that, small little things.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And buy a bicycle and be able to ride a bike in Bogota. I've been living here, and Bogota is the cycling capital of South America.
Oh,
And
okay.
I've been living here for like more than a month, almost 2 months now, and still haven't been able to get my hands on a bike and cycle somehow. So that's something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, yeah. I've read today somewhere, just like a headline, that bicycles are becoming the new toilet paper. Everybody now that everybody's just kind of like, okay, it's not a real big catastrophe in Europe, at least. We can still go outside, and now everybody wants to go cycling, and all of a sudden people just buy up all the bikes.
Well, that's maybe one of the few little perks, the silver linings of this crisis. For example, the city of Milan, which has been, of course, one of the most hit in Europe, yesterday published a new paper saying that they want to increase. It was on the Guardian.
Yeah.
They want to increase cycling lanes and pavements and really put on an effort so that people can cycle more. Because, of course, if you need to keep somehow social distancing in the long term, 100 people on their own bikes is way less dangerous than 100 people on the same bus.
Yeah.
So that's something that hopefully, the changing the way that we move, changing the way that we approach, some things. Hopefully that's one of the little silver linings, because for the rest it's really a tragic situation to be.
Yeah, it's true. And Milan was one of the cities with the most pollution anyways in Europe, right? Because of the geographic location and
Exactly.
I really hope that some of these things are going to come through, some silver linings. It'll be nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll leave you here. I know you got to go. It was super nice to talk to you. And
really, Mark.
Really good. And stay in touch.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for your call.
See ya. Bye-bye.